Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. My postman has just delivered my December 2019 issue of White Dwarf magazine. So obviously I've immediately set up and started recording my initial impressions of what is included. The reason being, this issue actually includes some new Blackstone Fortress content. However, caveat, this video is almost a little bit redundant because the content included is a new Retinue character with the side mission necessary to unlock that character. It's Penitent 707, which is an arco-flagellant from the Sisters of Battle box set that came out recently. That character has also been put into the Blackstone Fortress Annual. I have already placed my pre-order for the Blackstone Fortress Annual, which should arrive anytime from Saturday onwards. So I'm looking at a character in this issue which is going to be repeated in the Blackstone Fortress Annual shortly. So if you are only interested in Blackstone Fortress content and you have already pre-ordered the Blackstone Fortress Annual, you don't need this issue of White Dwarf. If the only thing that you care about is the Retinue character and you've ordered that annual, you're covered. But I'm going to take a look at that character here and now because obviously we're still a week away from getting my annual. The other thing to point out is that this issue really is a bit of a Christmas present. It's a bit of a gift. It's actually packed with loads of content for different games. I've done this in previous videos, and I know that some people are tuning into these videos just for the Blackstone Fortress content, and they can get a little bit testy if there's a big section at the start of the video where I talk about other games. But I'm going to very briefly mention all of the other content that's in this issue. If you are only interested in Blackstone Fortress content, which is the main point of this video, I am putting a timestamp in the description. Please check out the description, go to the timestamp that I have specified to go straight to the Blackstone Fortress content. Okay, so first of all, what a lovely cover that is. But yes, so it came in a sleeve and it came with a bunch of extra stuff. I am not going to go through any of this stuff in any great detail. The first thing is a Necromunda gang raid supplement, which looks pretty interesting, but frankly, I'm kind of done with Necromunda. I really liked the new rule set. I really liked the new starter set, and I bought the first gang supplement that came out at the same time. However, from that point on, I very quickly ran out of interest in it. The way they broke down the products, the way they distributed the products, the way they split rules up between products. So I haven't really followed Necromunda, but this certainly looks like it's going to be some interesting stuff for people who are interested in Necromunda. It says, it includes gang raid scenarios focusing on small battlefield setups. They make a great way to start a collection of Zone Mortalis terrain. Ah, I see what you've done there, Games Workshop, you sneaky so-and-sos. Nothing's ever free, is it? With smaller crew sizes, the scenarios are ideal for playing over a lunch break, in between larger games, or for those wishing to play several games over the course of an evening. And with their narrative focus, gang raid scenarios offer the Necromunda player a new style of adventure in the Underhive. So there we go. Yeah, it's little battles. It's a way of playing short games in a small amount of time. The second thing, also for Necromunda, is an exclusive tactics card. It says, a present for you. Play this card when your opponent activates one of their fighters, even if the fighter was activated as part of a group activation. Center the 3-inch blast marker on the fighter who has just activated, then roll the scatter dice and a d6 to see where the marker moves. If a hit is rolled on the scatter dice, the marker remains where it is. Roll a d6 on the table below to determine what kind of trait the blast has. It's either concussion, flash, or fear gas. Any fighters under the marker immediately suffer a hit with the traits listed. The second card included is actually a card for Gotrek. For inclusion in Warcry. We will take a look at this in a bit more detail with the included rules in the magazine. But yes, special character, not for your standard games of Warcry, because he's a beast. Finally, And I may do a separate video on this, I'm not sure. But there is this this poster. On one side it's just a poster of some Ultramarines boys fighting some Gene Stealers. But on the other side, there is this game mat for this Spell Flux Spire. And this is actually a mini game that they have included in the magazine. It's for up to 4 players, each controlling a wizard. You basically have to ascend to the center circle. Like I say, if anybody is really interested in knowing more about that, I can do a separate video on it, but obviously it's a full game, so it could take quite a while for me to go through that in any kind of detail in this video. In the magazine itself, there is so much content, I've had to use a whole bunch of sticky notes. So, let's have a look. So first of all, like I mentioned before, we have this mini-game, the Spell Flux Spire, which I've read through the rules. It doesn't sound particularly exciting, but it's a free mini-game in the magazine, so who am I to complain about them including a little game that you can use with any... You don't have to use wizard miniatures, any miniatures will do, you don't even need to use miniatures, just put tokens down, it doesn't matter. It's a mini game, it is complete and of itself a little way to pass the time. Next up we have our rules for Gotrek in Warcry. Now he has no points values and no faction specifications, so he can't be used in challenge battles, so he's only for specific fun games. Furthermore, they have included rules for the challenge battles for him, which means you need the Warcry Monsters and Mercenaries book, which gives you all the rules for how challenge battles work. So there's a picture of the card. I guess this is for people who buy the PDF version of the magazine. They can print that out and cut it out or whatever. We have a list of his abilities, and then we have our scenario battles. I don't play Warcry, so these don't mean anything to me, but like I say, they're not something you're going to be using in your regular campaigns, because Gotrek is too silly powerful to actually include in a warband, because he's just going to mince up everybody he meets. Next we have a couple of War Scrolls for Age of Sigmar, and these are War Scroll battalions that enable you to field the unique formations of Lady Olinda's Emerald Host on the battlefield. Next we have something really interesting. We're still in the realm of the Age of Sigmar, but this is actually the first part of a 2-part set of rules. The rest of the rules come in January for a completely new game using flying miniatures. And it's actually based on an old Games Workshop game called Stormcloud Attack, which was aerial combat in 40k using the big flyers from regular 40k games. Now, I never played Stormcloud Attack, but I did hear good things about it. It was recommended to me a couple of times, but I never got around to trying it, and it's no longer available. But they have repurposed those rules, transferred them to the Age of Sigmar, and they have applied them to all of the flying monsters and machines that the Age of Sigmar forces have. So this is actually a completely new game. We have quite extensive rules. This section this month has basically all of the rules, and then at the end we have a duel and a scenario, and then we have the Arcanaut, Ironclad, and the Bloodthirster stat cards. And then in January, we're going to be getting more stat cards, and we're going to be getting more scenarios, I believe. Really interesting. If you've got some flyers, or you've got some things that you can proxy as flyers, another complete game. And if you missed Stormcloud Attack, like I did, and it's something that you always wanted to consider trying, you've got an option to try those rules just in a different setting. That's pretty cool. In our 40k section of the magazine, we are looking at the Flesh Terrors. And there is a new scenario involving the Flesh Terrors, complete with stratagems, including some that are specifically for Flesh Terrors. Next, we have some Kill Team content. We actually have rules for introducing the Red Gobbo to our games. And he can be added to any orc force, but he is best when he is the leader of a mob of Gretchen. If you only have Gretchen on your team, then he's a good person to lead them. In fact, I'm not sure anybody would really field an all Gretchen mob unless they were actually specifically intending to field the Red Gobbo. He's pretty interesting. He's got some fun abilities. Probably the most fun ability he has is that in his movement phase, if there's a Gretchen within 3 inches, he can basically pass judgment on whether that Gretchen has been naughty or nice. You roll a d6. On the roll of a 1, the Gretchen has been naughty and takes a wound. But on a 2 to 6, the Gretchen has been very, very good. And you give them the gift of stick bombs for the rest of the game. So you can very quickly end up with a lot of Gretchen running around with stick bombs. He also has his own tactic. He has a special ability called the Revolution, which if you've only got Gretchen in your team, then they are +1 on their hit rolls and -1 on their nerve tests. His tactic, his new tactic, allows Gretchen within a certain range and within 6 inches to ignore the penalties that come from having a flesh wound. So yeah, he's entirely geared around leading a group of Gretchen, rising up against their oppressors, who are pretty much everybody else in the universe. Fun! And there's actually even a special narrative play mission. You can play this as a one-off game, or you can use it in place of the Disrupt Supply Lines mission if you're playing in a campaign. Basically, the Gretchens are the attackers. They have to blow up 3 objectives using stick bombs, and they win if they blow up all 3. Relatively straightforward, but a fun narrative mission that plays into that whole the uprising of the poor put upon Gretchen, led by their illustrious leader, the Red Gobbo. Phew, we are still not done, because yet more Necromunda content. This is a set of extended rules for fighting in Zone Mortalis terrain. So, again, like I say, Necromunda, I'm kind of done with it, but for Necromunda players, this is a fantastic issue of White Dwarf. There's quite a lot going on there, and I think they even give you some tips on how to make some of the elements to give your battlefields some more personality. But that's it. That's all of the other game content for all of the other game systems that Games Workshop make. And wow, that is a lot of stuff. But let's get to the Blackstone Fortress, because that's why we're really here. So the Blackstone Fortress content, like I say, is a new Retinue character who will also be appearing in the Blackstone Fortress Annual. And if you know, if you've looked at any of the previous issues that have had Retinue characters, or you own the Escalation expansion, which has a Retinue character, you know how Retinue characters kind of work by this point. This Retinue character in particular is Penitent 707, an arco-flagellant, who actually, the storyline is that they were working with Thaddeus the Purifier, but on an early investigation into the Blackstone Fortress, the pacifier mask that switches off the arco-flagellant's bloodlust malfunctions, and the arco-flagellant just goes off on one, runs off into the darkness, screaming and hitting things with his flail hands, never to be seen again. But the explorers have got wind that the arco-flagellant is nearby. They go to explore and attempt to crack the code on the pacifier mask to deactivate the rage and regain control. As always, we get one mission, which is a single battlefield arena with a specific set of objectives. If you achieve those objectives, then you get to keep this new Retinue character, and at the start of any subsequent mission, you can pick one Retinue character to come with you. It should be noted that you cannot take a Retinue character with you to go and release the arco-flagellant. It is not possible to do that. You have to go and deal with it just with your explorers. So we have our standard Retinue rules that have been reproduced for several months now with all of the different characters. And Then, over the page, we have our stat card. Now, when you first find Penitent 707, when you're doing the side quest to gain control of Penitent 707, they will be inspired, because inspired is basically pacifier mask off, and not inspired is pacifier mask on. So if we look at the character, they've got a move 2, defense of a d6, agility of a d6, vitality of a d8, and there are no weapons, no attack actions at all, because the pacifier mask is on, obviously. And down here in the rules for a living weapon, it says do not roll activation dice for the Penitent 707. Instead, it can take up to 3 move or recuperate actions in any order or combination. In addition, Penitent 707 can never gain inspiration. So basically just ambling around, walking around, waiting for the kill switch. And then we have the secret agenda. The leader can choose to inspire Penitent 707 after spending an activation dice for any action, if there are any hostiles visible to their explorer on the battlefield. So basically, sick 'em, get stuck in. So at that point, you can activate the inspiration, and we switch to this side of the character sheet. We can see that the defense, the agility, and the vitality do not change, but suddenly we gain access to arco-flagellant, which it's only close combat, but rolls 2d8. And we get a whole bunch of new special rules. First of all, living weapon changes. It says do not roll activation dice for Penitent 707. Instead, it can take up to 4 of the following actions in any order. Move, arco-flagellant. That's it. So no longer has access to recuperate. It's just moving and arco-flailing, because, you know, the kill switch is gone. So if it is not adjacent to a hostile, Penitent 707 must make a move action. When it makes a move action, it must always move closer to the nearest hostile. If it is adjacent to a hostile, it will not make a move action. In addition, Penitent 707 can never gain inspiration points. So this is important to note. You don't have a huge amount of control over what Penitent 707 is doing. Once the kill switch has been flicked, they kill. And they will keep killing until there are no hostiles. They will always run after the hostiles. Once they have reached a hostile, depending on what's going on, they will just stay next to that hostile and just keep swinging until the hostile goes down. And we can see we have the Berserk killing machine. Do not make defense rolls for Penitent 707. Penitent 707 does not receive the benefit of cover. So once that kill switch is gone, once the pacifier mask is off, it's all about running at things, screaming and flailing. Cover doesn't apply. Defense doesn't apply. Obviously, cover and defense do apply when the pacifier mask is on, but once it's off, no longer. We also have the combat stims ability, which says re-roll failed attack rolls for Penitent 707, which means with 4 actions, rolling 2d8 per attack, re-rolls on fails, very good chance of killing quite a lot of stuff with this character. Finally, we can see we have the pacifier helm ability. If there are no hostiles on the battlefield after an action, turn Penitent 707's Retinue character card back over to its secret agenda side. If this happens during Penitent 707's activation, end its activation. So, you have to be careful, because once you have switched off the pacifier mask, that's going to be an issue until there are no enemies left on the board. So if you suddenly decide you want to leave, Penitent 707 has other ideas. So, use with care. An interesting character, very narrative, strongly thematic. I like it a lot. I think possibly the biggest problem at the moment is actually getting access to an arco-flagellant character, because to the best of my knowledge, they are only available at the moment in the Sisters of Battle box set, which is sold out very quickly, unless you happen to have one of the old metal ones, which I guess stopped being made a long time ago as well. So, to the best of my knowledge, there is no immediately obvious way to get an arco-flagellant if you do not have one already from a Sisters of Battle box or an old metal one. but relatively easy to proxy. Use a cultist miniature or something, or if you've got some other steampunky game sort of thing. I've probably got something in my Anima Tactics collection that I can use for the time being. A proxy, a suitable proxy, can't be that hard to find. But anyway, let's have a quick look at the mission itself. And then we will wrap this video up, because I've been talking for a long time. So we have the Salvation of Penitent 707. We have a battlefield setup here. We have a whole heck of a heap of enemies. We've got Traitor Guardsmen, Chaos Space Marines, more Traitor Guardsmen and Chaos Space Marine, some Chaos Beastmen, and then we have Cultists and a Cultist Firebrand. So to play this mission as is, you do need the escalation expansion for those enemies. Of course, if you don't have escalation, proxy in something else. Just add more guardsmen or something. It'll be a slightly different experience, but muddle through with whatever you can do. We have 4 spawn zones, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 707 starts here, and obviously is in an inspired state, so we'll immediately start rushing down these corridors and killing loads of stuff. And I think you're probably going to have to rush to get in there and help, because with no cover and no armor saves, and that many enemies kicking around, including the Firebrand and the Cultists, very good chance of the of Penitent 707 getting swamped and taken down. And obviously, if Penitent 707 dies, the mission is a failure, and you cannot add that retinue character to your roster. We have some special rules up here. We have too risky, you cannot pick a retinue character to accompany the explorers. Then we have a weapon unsheathed. Penitent 707 starts this expedition inspired. Activates after the leader each turn after any attempts to decipher its pacifist helm code. Follow the rules on Penitent 707's character card to see what action it takes when it activates. Whilst there are no hostiles on the battlefield, Penitent 707 treats explorers as hostiles when it takes an action. So, once all of the enemies are dead, rather than flipping back to an uninspired state as would normally be the case, because the pacifier helm is broken, the kill switch stays flicked, and the Penitent 707 character comes after you. To crack the code is actually a neat little mini game sort of thing. You have to claim all 4 of the discovery markers, and then you have to play a little mastermind type game with them. The way it works is, after an explorer has finished their activation for the round, they can take one go at cracking the code. They place all of the discovery tokens face down so you can't see the numbers, mix them up, and then they put down a dice next to each one, and it has to be a different value on the dice from 1 to 4. And then you flip them over, and if the value on the dice matches the value on the token, you have cracked that part of the code, and you can put that token to one side. If it's not a match, they go back into the pool. And you keep doing this after each activation until eventually you whittle it down and get all four matches. Once you've done that, you switch off Penitent 707. The pacifier mask is reactivated, and that is it. It's the end of the mission. You have been successful. But obviously, the main thing is keeping Penitent 707 alive long enough for you to claim all of those discovery tokens and then use them to crack the code. It's a really interesting expedition. It's a really interesting retinue character, actually. It's probably the most interesting of the ones they've released so far for me. It's a shame it's a difficult miniature to get. But yeah, I think... I think it's probably the most interesting retinue character they've done. It's something a little bit different. I do like the narrative element of the way the character works. It's very strong thematically. Yeah, I like it. I'll probably give it a whirl at some point. But that's it. That's everything. And like I say, all of this stuff is going to be in the Blackstone Fortress Annual, which I have already ordered. So... if this is the only reason you're interested in White Dwarf magazine, if this content is the only thing you're after, and you're already I would assume that if you're interested in this content, then you're interested in Blackstone Fortress, and in which case I would recommend to just buy the annual instead. But that is it from me for now. Thank you very much for bearing with me in this rather long video. If you have liked the video, please consider pressing the like button, and if you have really liked the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.